Morning, everyone. My name is Sagar, and I am part of HCL's digital business unit. I am based out of Singapore. A lot of you, in the morning came and asked, what is HCL? So I want to start by giving you a brief introduction to my company, which is HCL is now about 45 years old company, which is headquarters in India. We have been present in the region for about 15 years, in Saudi Arabia for about 10 years, and essentially about 11 some odd billion dollar revenue, and we have been present in about 55 countries now. I'm part of digital business unit, and again, the question that comes up is what does digital business unit means, or what does digital means? Because apparently, digital would mean it seems like anything and everything that you can do can be classified as digital, and that's the reason why the second most important thing that I wanted to kind of clarify is what does digital means to us? It's essentially quite simple. It is being divided into three important pillars, which is modern application services. You talk about digital architecture, and of course I would not name as an enterprise architecture, because by the virtue of enterprise architecture, it's the blueprint that will be that was made and then be followed by enterprises around the world to kind of adapt to different technologies for about 5 or 6 years. But we have started coining the word digital architecture because by that virtue, digital architecture can be changed, because there are new technologies that are coming up in the market, because of which your architecture should be nimble enough, agile enough to make sure that new technologies can be embraced into the architecture. So that's the modern application services. That's the first pillar. Second is data, which is you cannot think about digitalization keeping data aside. Data has to be part of your digital strategy, and I'm sure a lot of your enterprises, a lot of your organizations would already have data as part of your digital strategy. And the third one is digital consulting, which essentially means enterprise process consulting, business process consulting, and user experience. I was talking to one of my customers earlier today in the morning, and I was telling him that there is something magical in doing this event face-to-face, meeting people face-to-face. I'm based out of Singapore, and sorry about that technical glitch in a technical event, but apparently I was telling you that I was talking to one of my customers earlier today in the morning, and I was telling him that it is something magical to attend this event face-to-face, even though Singapore, where I am based out of, has never been closed because of a pandemic, but the events such as this used to happen virtually, and doing this face-to-face gives us a chance to introduce our company, our offerings, to meet face-to-face with you, to kind of understand what challenges that are facing, what kind of amazing opportunities that come along with it, and the amazing things that you are doing for your enterprises. And when I was getting ready for this particular event, and again from past 2 years I have not traveled much from Singapore. My 6-year-old came and asked me, where am I going? And I told her that I'm going to participate in this event, which is digital transformation, which is in Riyadh. And she very innocently asked me, what does digital transformation mean? And that got me thinking, and I think there was a very interesting topic that was discussed earlier, just before this in the fire chat, that digital transformation does not mean, or does not necessarily mean or related to technology. While I was able to give her a convincing answer, which possibly I will get to know once I come back, but it got me thinking that I can of course not tell her about microservices or cloud or modern applications or DevOps and Agile and so on and so forth. So while I gave her a convincing answer in her own language, it got me thinking that digital transformation or the future that is getting created by digital transformation is often mistaken by people like us that it is being created by scientists or technologies all around the world. But in my opinion, it is pretty simple. It is something. The future is created by changes in consumer behavior. The way companies change their product, their go-to-market, and make sure that it is being absorbed and consumed by the next generation. That's what transformation to me means, and how digital can or technology can enable that is all about digital transformation. And that's the reason why I went on and did this survey. Looked at this survey. I in fact researched about it. It's a very interesting survey that is done by McKinsey, which means that about 80% of companies have digital strategy in place. And I will be very surprised if I come to know that any company would not have digital strategy available. And most of the digital strategy is essentially revolving around cloud, revolving around data. Many of them would have modern applications. Many of them would want to kind of change their integration and ESB, which is Enterprise Service Bus, to microservices-based architecture, so on and so forth. But there are only very limited number of enterprises who have concentrated on changing the business processes. In fact, this survey says that there are only about 50% of companies who have essentially given importance to change their business processes, which is what is challenging in my opinion. And that is the reason why I thought that I will start with this particular slide. And inherently, there is definitely a struggle to bridge the gap between the strategy that has been laid out and the execution. I've been in Riyadh for past 2 days, and I've been talking to a lot of my customers, and I've been amazed by the vision, by the things that your organizations, my customers' organizations are trying to do. Having said that, one inherent challenge that I keep on hearing is how to scale, how to execute, and you know that's essentially that's not something new to Saudi Arabia. It's something that we are seeing globally because there is definitely a gap between the laying out of plan, laying out of strategy, and the execution of it. There are other challenges as well that the enterprises are essentially facing. The number one that is being faced by the enterprises all around the world is the inertia to change. Now, of course, from a digital transformation perspective, the plan or the strategy that is being embedded by executives and business leaders and technologists of a particular organization should be absorbed by the operations, should be absorbed by the people who are actually working on. And that's where, and I work with a lot of banks in ASEAN, in Southeast Asia, in Northeast Asia as well, which essentially says that, if I take an example of a bank, you would have your trade finance separate, running their IT department separately, your retail, consumer, private, business banking, so on and so forth separately. Essentially, and within that also you will have your development teams that will be done separately, application support and maintenance will be done separately, operations will be run in a different way. And when it comes to DevOps ways of working, there is definitely a resistance between the dev and ops team, which is what the companies all around the world are initially focusing on. The second one is inefficient use of customer data. Now, because of the technology and because of the social media, because of the internal social media as well that is internal to your, or B2E, which is internal to your enterprises, there is lots and lots of amount of data, customer data, enterprise data, business partner data, which is available, but there is definitely a lack of using it efficiently. I think I was talking to someone yesterday, and they were saying that how we can create effective reporting, effective intelligence, how we can make data models that could make use of the data that is available for us for consumption. Legacy modernization is one of the prime challenges that we are facing. We are seeing that the customers are facing now. Inherently, about 5-6 years ago, we ourselves used to say that we can sustain a 2-speed IT, which is where you have your legacy and ERPs of the world would work on a certain speed, and channels and your B2C, which is business to customer or business to business for that matter, could be run in a different speed. But in reality, it does not happen. When from an architecture point of view, when you start looking your channels layer interacting with your middleware or backend system, you would essentially also want to kind of make sure that your backend is agile enough to provide the information that your channel wants to consume. And that's where, when it comes to legacy modernization, a lot of companies, in my opinion, have neglected the middleware or the backend layer and only have concentrated on the channels, on making sure that the customer experience that your consumers are getting from the channels. But in fact, when you click on, and all of us have actually gone through this challenge, when you click on a very good-looking mobile app and the circle keeps on revolving, you yourself get irritated, and after a point of time, you would go out and you would essentially not use that app again. And that's the reason why it is very, very important that the legacy has to be modernized, and you have to see this holistically, which companies are not looking, and that's one of the challenge. There is inflexibility of technology development as well, wherein, again, the digital experience, going back to the previous point, is often thought through that it will be consumed or it will be provided by your front-looking apps or front-end apps, and neglecting the back-end, which is where you will have to kind of make sure that it is properly propagated. The fifth one, and we are, from an SI point of view, as I said, we are present in 50 countries, so we keep on getting data from all those 50 countries, is the digital talent deficit. It is very important to acknowledge, first of all, that there is a talent deficit, and those who are onboarded for a particular program or a project essentially are not properly looked towards. And that's the reason why, as a company, we give #1 importance to talent acquisition and make sure that the talent that we acquire, the talent that we onboard, are constantly upgraded from a capability and capacity point of view. And we have a dedicated business unit which focuses on capability and capacity. We call it as CNC, which essentially makes sure that we bring in the right talents to do the work that our customers are expecting out of us. Again, this was a point that was brought up in the fireside chat, that cultural adoption is most important barrier to digital success. And I would inherently believe that that's very much true, because as long as your organizational culture does not change to make sure that the digital strategy or the plan that you have created is absorbed and everything works in a well-oiled manner, because I'm sure companies for many years would make sure that the front-end systems would be run by a different department, the back-end system would be run by a different department, the data will be different, the cloudification will be different, the DevOps will be different, so on and so forth, right? Having said that, all these parts should essentially come together and make sure that this all works as a well-oiled engine. And that's the reason why we give enough importance to organizational change management, which essentially concentrates on making sure that the culture of your organization is ready to adapt. And I was talking to one of my customers in a bank, and he very jokingly said that being agile is the tax that we pay on top of the projects that we run, because essentially in a bank it is virtually impossible to kind of make sure that all the requirements are gathered in one place, and then then the project is being executed. The requirements keeps on changing, and when you start doing agile, typically the production support, the production environment, guardrails will not allow you to go into production every now and then. It has to go through a proper check-in point, and that's the reason why even though they might say that they are agile, they essentially work in a waterfallish way. At max, they work in an iterative form, which is fine. As long as your organizational culture accepts that I will be waterfallish in my ways of working, I will be iterative in my ways of working, there is no need to copy what is out there in the market and being agile. There is no need to do that, because ultimately what works for you works for you. And that's the reason why cultural adoption is very important. And most importantly, this is something that executives and business leaders such as yourself have to drive this as a separate agenda in your budgeting or in your day-to-day, in your long-term plans. Now, of course, we have talked enough about challenges. We have acknowledged that yes, there is a challenge that needs to be overcome. There is a gap that needs to be filled from having a digital strategy in place
to making sure that it is being executed properly. What would be the criteria that will help you to achieve success? Success can be achieved only when you have people, process, and technology come together. And as a company, we give a lot of importance to this mantra, if I may say so, because anything that can be seen in isolation will make sure that you fail. Because process is number one important. As long as you are looking towards your business processes in a different way, you are making sure that your businesses are changed, your go-to-market strategy is changed, so that you create new products which can be consumed by the next generation of people. You will essentially be doing the same old thing, and the next generation of people will not be able to kind of relate to what your company has to offer. I will take one example over here. Those who are technologists in the room would understand the Ethernet, which was essentially being peer-to-peer protocol communication back in 1970s, right? Then came TCP/IP, then came HTTP, then came SSL, TSL frameworks, encryption framework. With the advent of technology, the businesses have also changed. What started with 3Com, then it went to pizza.com, it went to Amazon, PayPal, and now we have blockchain. From peer-to-peer, we went to centralized, we went to decentralized networking, and we have seen this advent that businesses have inherently changed, and those businesses who have not changed with the change in technology are no longer in the market. So processes becomes number one important point that needs to be taken care of. Technology is, of course, we are all here because of technology. We are connected together because of technology. So technology has to be given due importance. And the third one is people, which is where you have to hire, train, and deploy. Give maximum importance to your people, because that's where you will be able, they are the one who will be able to bring the change that you are trying to imbibe. Now, this is about people, process, and technology. What is the change change in relooking your business architecture? And I started at the start of my conversation, I told that you have to start thinking about enterprise architecture and start thinking about digital architecture. Because enterprise architecture, by the virtue, is being laid out by architects as a blueprint which the company has to follow for next 5 to 6 years. But when it comes into digital architecture, by the virtue of it as a digital, they will be nimble enough to make sure that any new technologies that come into the market will be consumed, adopted by your architecture. And that's the reason why we inverted our pyramid. We stopped. In fact, I don't go and talk to my customers or consult my customers to create applications. We do, as a team, start promoting that you should have a platform thinking. And once you have the platform thinking, which gives the digital experience, that's where your design, technology, and operations comes in front. So you just invert your thought process, invert the pyramid. And once you have the platform, by the virtue that it is a platform, it will be used to kind of welcome all the new technologies that are there. So you have your data platform that can be used by IoT, that can be used by cybersecurity, that can be used by if you are talking about metaverse, all the data that comes through the metaverse from your channels can be consumed in your data as a platform, and then you can use that data as a platform. So that's the reason why enterprise digitalization is enabled by inverting your thought process, looking towards platforms and digital experience first, and rest other things will follow. I want to flash out how a platform economy would look like. And once you stop thinking about technology and start thinking of the business use case, that's where your next step next step in progress towards your digital age would come into play. If you see, the top side is about top layer of each block is all about use case. You can talk about your marketplace, you can talk about your portals, connected devices, collaboration, so on and so forth, which will be then powered by your channels, your microservices-based architecture, or talk about containerizations or DevOps and so on and so forth. The top layer will be powered by your composable architecture, which is where you have your middleware as a platform, data as a platform, which I just now talked about, your intelligence platform, which is essentially making sure that the data models are, the decision models are being created and data is consumed for data platform, which will essentially help you to kind of make sure that you get the information right at the right time and in the right context. And then, of course, I'm going back to the two-speed IT. You have your foundation ERPs of the world, product catalogs of the world, which will make sure that it is being powered. It gives power to your middleware and your front-end platforms. I would like to take a pause over here and say that when technology, process, and data equivalent to the people, because people is something that will be consuming data, will be producing data, will be propagating data. When it comes together, it essentially gives you the transformed customer experience, which is being expected by our customers out in the world. And hence, as a team, as a group, we should stop thinking about next generation technologies or digital technologies. We should start thinking about how our products will be, how our go-to-market or how our propositions will be consumed by next generation of people, and then technology can be an enabler or differentiator in whichever shape and form that you would want to use it. I think I'm right on time. I will take a pause here, and thank you so much for giving me a chance to and listening to me to be present over here. I'm from one very I for one, I am grateful to be here. We have a booth here, and we'll be more than happy to kind of walk through or deep dive or double click on anything or any topic that you would want us to indulge more upon. Thank you so much.